Okay, so our next video is to do with marketing. You've come across that term marketing when we've looked at markets. We briefly looked at the 4 Ps, but now we're going to look at that topic in a lot more detail. So this first video looks at the purpose behind marketing, particularly from the perspective of the organisation, of a business. It contrasts consumer marketing and business-to-business marketing, and we will look at what niche marketing is, what mass marketing is, their benefits, their drawbacks, and something called product differentiation. So first of all, key terms, make sure these go in your definitions book. So marketing, this is defined as anticipating, so thinking before it happens, and satisfying, so giving. So the anticipating and satisfying of customers' wants in a way that delights the customer and also meets the needs of the organisation. So it's not just that we're trying to make the customer feel, meh. We're not trying to feel, yeah. We're trying to make them feel delighted. But that doesn't mean that we do it at the expense of everything. If you're buying a bar of chocolate, you don't get a free gold watch with it, because that would delight you, but it would also mean that the business had no money. So it also has to meet the needs of the organisation. Second one, marketing objectives. These are the goals of the marketing function in an organisation. The marketing function just means the part of the business that's responsible for marketing. The word function is often interchangeable with the word department. Business to consumer marketing, or B2C, this is where a firm targets consumers with its products, so you and I. And business to business marketing, or B2B, is where a firm sells its products to another business. Next key term is a niche market. Lots of people mispronounce that. It's niche. This is when we target a product or a service at a very small segment of a larger market. So remember, we said that a whole market might be defined like a pizza. So if you are targeting that, then this is a mass market. So a mass market is aiming a product at all or most of the market. So it could be a large part of the market, but a niche might be this tiny bit here. So a very small part of the market. Product differentiation, the degree to which consumers see a particular brand as being different to other brands, so making our product different. So those are the key words that we need to bear in mind when we're doing this topic. So what are the purposes of marketing? Well, we need to think about, from the definition then, anticipating customers' wants. So the first stage of marketing is to conduct market research. So remember, that's how we find out about our customers. And the purpose at this time is to discover the wants of customers and the factors that influence those wants. Detailed analysis of market research. You should really look back at the previous videos that we've done in your previous notes, because I'm not going to go into any more detail about market research, because that's obviously a topic we've already looked at. The next stage, or the next thing, or the next reason that we have marketing, is to satisfy customers' wants in a way that delights the customer, remember. So an organisation will decide on suitable marketing techniques in order to ensure that the customers are delighted. So remember, that means that they're not just happy, but over the moon, if you like. The approach used by organisation to achieve this is known as the marketing mix, or the 4 Ps. Now, we will look at that in more detail, but basically, an organisation will plan a suitable product. So there's the first P, so the actual product or the service. It will charge an attractive price that not only makes money for the business, but also attracts people to it. They will put the product in the right location or the right place. Now, that can also mean how it's sold, so it might be via the internet or via a shop. And use promotion to make customers aware of the product. As I say, we'll look at the 4 Ps in more detail later on. Remember we said that marketing also has to meet the needs of the organisation. So ultimately, marketing is intended to enable the business to satisfy its own wants. A business will have its own corporate aims and objectives. So these are the goals and the specific targets of the organisation as a whole. And having decided on these aims and objectives, the organisation will then decide on suitable aims and objectives for its marketing activities or the marketing department. So the aims of the marketing function will help achieve the aims of the business overall. So we've got to remember that. So what are marketing objectives? Well, a business's marketing objectives are the goals that are set for the marketing department. These goals must be consistent with the goals of the organisation as a whole. So they must be trying to achieve the same thing. So for example, one of Sainsbury's corporate objectives at the minute is to increase the amount of fair trade product that it sells. So in order to achieve this, Sainsbury's decided to set itself a marketing objective to raise the profile of its fair trade range by buying all of its bananas from fair trade sources, for instance. So our organisations can use the marketing mix, those 4 Ps, to achieve their marketing objectives. So it has to fit in with what the rest of the company want. So remember, bananas at Sainsbury. So what are the different types of marketing objectives? Well, overall, it depends what your organisation wants to achieve, but they can be categorised in a number of ways. So the first one we'll look at is size. So size can be measured by sales or market share. So remember, that's value or volume. So a business might set a specific level of sales volume. So this might be Nestle trying to maintain Kit Kat's sales volume of, say, 4 million bars sold worldwide every day. It might be that they set themselves a target of a percentage rise in sales revenue. So it could be Apple trying to achieve a 10% rise in sales in 2015. It might be that you are trying to target a particular market share. So it might be Ford trying to target a 15% share of the overall UK car market. Or it might be a company such as Asda trying to be the market leader. Or it could be that Sainsbury is trying to become the second biggest supermarket in the UK. So these could all be objectives that the marketing function has to try to achieve to do with size. Another type of marketing objectives could be to do with market positioning. So this is concerned with the company's appeal to a particular market segment. So say, for instance, rugby recently has tried to appeal to more women. Starbucks is trying to appeal to younger age groups, or teenagers in particular. And BT has very recently bid for Premiership football in order to increase its appeal to sports fans who would mainly watch Sky. So they're trying to achieve a different position in the market. Another type of marketing objective could be to try and innovate or increase its product range. So it might be that Ben & Jerry's launch a new flavour, or it might be Apple launching the new iPhone 5C, both to penetrate a new market and enhance its reputation for innovation and new design. Another objective could be to try and create brand loyalty or goodwill. So brand, so say for instance Nike is a brand, and loyalty means that we stick to it. So it might be that the marketing objective is to create people who want to stick with a particular brand. A really good example is O2, when the iPhone originally came out, negotiated an exclusive agreement with Apple that allowed O2 to be the only network provider for the iPhone. The hope was that people would stay with O2 because the iPhone was worth it. McDonald's aimed to maintain the golden arches as the most widely recognised corporate logo in the world. Specsavers aimed to set a percentage of repeat customers, so it might be that they want 40% of customers to keep coming back. Lush, who make premium soaps, they are able to set a premium price in comparison with other retailers because they have goodwill, they have brand loyalty. Another objective, a really important one for smaller companies especially, is to create or to ensure survival. So say for instance the National Lottery has been, I don't know what I've done there, that should say trying. So the National Lottery has been trying to introduce new games to stop falling sales. So it might be that one of their marketing objective is to try and sell new games. So recently, well not recently, but a couple of years ago, there was the Euro Millions was brought in purely to try and stop people from spending their money elsewhere. So a little exam tip there. So marketing objectives are not static, they don't stay the same. They change as the business develops, as it gets bigger, as it gets smaller, as it gets richer, as it gets poorer. They also change in response to external circumstances like the law, the economy, the government, competitors. So although many customers perceive marketing to be linked to their needs, so me and you think that marketing is all about us, or you and I, think marketing is all about us, the most fundamental reason for marketing is to meet the needs of the organisation, the needs of the business. So there's a wide range of marketing objectives, all of which are trying to use us to help the business achieve what it is they want to achieve. The process is made very complicated by the existence of competitors whose marketing aim will be to try and prevent other companies from achieving their marketing aims. So I said I would tell you what the difference between business to consumer and business to business. There is a tendency, so people tend to think of marketing as an interaction between business and us customers. That's not always the case. If we were to take a product back one stage, we can see that this is not the only type of marketing. So say for instance a retailer such as Asda will be involved in business to business transaction when buying strawberries from a farm who they buy them from, but then business to consumer when they sell to us. So there are some features that we can pick out of business to business which shows how different they are to business to consumer. So first of all, the transactions are larger. So Asda buy a heck of a lot more strawberries than you or I might. Doesn't matter how much you might like strawberries. So transactions are much larger, with perhaps millions of pounds worth of products being bought and sold in one transaction. There will be specialist buyers and sellers. So buyers and sellers will be specialist employees of organisations and will therefore have a much greater knowledge and greater understanding of the products being exchanged. Next one's quality. The buyer's reputation will often depend on the quality of the product being sold by the seller, so there's a much greater emphasis on quality and related factors such as after-sales servicing and maintenance. Informative advertising is something that differentiates business to business. So promotions and adverts tend to be much more informative rather than persuasive, as buyers will base their decisions on factual information. So because there are specialist buyers whose job it is just to buy strawberries for Asda, we're not going to use silly slogans and tricks to try and get them to buy those strawberries. It's just going to be pure information. So the adverts for business to business are very much different. In terms of pricing, the importance depends very much on the nature of the market. So if there's a wide choice of suppliers, low price might be critical in securing a deal. However, if there's only one supplier, the seller can set a much higher price. So if demand is low, price is low. If demand is high, price can be high. And finally, the type of relationship between the buyer and seller. So relationships between buyer and seller are very much more critical. In some cases, the organisation's systems will depend on replacements and additions being compatible with earlier purchases. So say, for instance, a computer or a security system. There is often a delicate balance between the need for profit, but also the need to maintain goodwill and good relationships with a customer. So news of poor customer service, for instance, will tend to be publicised and become well known more quickly in business-to-business transactions than business-to-consumer, purely because businesses are more powerful. They can get that message out there much more quickly. Although that is changing to a certain extent with the internet, because when we're unhappy, we can make people know that we're unhappy a lot easier and a lot quicker. So let's look at niche and mass marketing then. So if you remember back to the keywords at the beginning, niche marketing is targeting a product or a service at a small segment of a larger market. Mass market is aiming a product at all or most of the market. So it really is a really important decision that businesses have to take, whether to aim for a narrow range of customers or a broad range. So both niche and mass marketing can meet most of a business's marketing objectives. So first of all, let's look at niche marketing. So one example of a business aiming its products at a particular market might be Build-A-Bear. So this is where you can go along, pick your little teddy bear up, pick the clothes it wears, etc. So it offers customised teddy bears, complete with birth certificates and tape messages and clothing. So niche marketing is an attractive proposition for small firms, as there may be little competition in their segment. However, many firms involved in a niche market are owned by or parts of a larger organisation. So that's why I've told you about EMAP here. So these are one of the UK's largest magazine publishers, and they produce mass market publications, so things like FHM, but they're targeted at specific niche segments. They also have very obvious niche products as well, things like Kerrang, pregnancy magazines, Good Housekeeping, things like that. So ones that are only targeted, you're unlikely to see a 15-year-old lad buying a pregnancy magazine because it's not targeted at his segment, whereas he might buy FHM. So it might look as though all of those individual markets target one niche, but because they're all owned by the same company, so this EMAP, we say that for all they have niche products, they're trying to capture the whole market. Some niche markets are based on exclusive or high quality products, that's what I've told you about Ferrari, or are found in remote locations where higher prices can be charged because of the inconvenience of consumers finding a substitute. So it might be that you have a petrol station in the middle of the Highlands of Scotland, so because there aren't many substitutes, you can charge more. Many other, or probably most niche markets though, focus on lower price goods. That's why I told you about Pound Stretcher. Possibly because larger firms are put off by the lower profit margins. So remember, profit margins are the amount of profit you make on each sale. So the lower the price, the less profit that you make. So what are the benefits of niche marketing then? Well, there may be less competition. So because there are fewer competitors, large companies aren't attractive to relatively small niche markets. So probably there is less competition. So for example, there is only one magazine about something like orienteering because it's a minority sport, because the potential readership is too low to interest a large business which has high overheads. So the lack of competition enables firms to gain enough customers to earn decent profit. In some niche markets, the lack of competition may help firms to charge a much higher price than they might else be able to. So selling relatively few products at a high profit margin may enable these firms to achieve good profits. So next, let's look at costs. So the lack of scope for cost reduction by producing on a large scale may mean that small firms can compete more effectively in a niche market. Because usually large mass market firms can produce goods at a low unit cost because they can make more efficient use of machinery, or they can buy the machinery in the first place, or because they're buying so much raw materials they can get it cheap. So think again about EMAP. They buy the paper for all of their niche products. So because they're a bigger company, they get bulk discounts. In a niche market, there may be too few customers for large businesses to gain these advantages. Therefore, a small firm may be able to match the costs of a larger rival in a niche market. Small-scale production. The limited demand may suit a small business that would lack the resources to produce on a larger scale. So think of capacity. So because we're aiming at a niche market, a smaller market, we don't need as much capacity, which isn't as expensive. A sole trader, for example, would only be able to produce enough products for a small market niche. We might be able to tailor-make products. So a business can adapt its products to meet the specific needs of a niche market rather than compromise between the needs of many different customer groups in a mass market. Tailor-made products designed to meet the specific needs of a customer are quite common in a niche market. This makes a product more attractive to the customer, obviously, which makes it more likely they're going to buy it. It not only increases demand, but also allows the firm to charge a higher price because it's tailor-made to individuals. The product will have what we call a unique selling point, or a USP. That's an important phrase, just because it shows that you understand what marketing is, but it's basically saying that something has a feature that another product doesn't have. So it might be a brand, could be a unique selling point. It could be, say for instance, the design of an iPhone, the easy to use nature of an iPhone could be its unique selling point. And finally, we can target customers because it's much easier for us to target customers in a niche and to promote their products or to promote our products effectively when we're only selling to a certain type of customer or a certain segment. So the content of adverts can be designed to appeal to specific market segments being targeted. Also, the media used can be selected to attract the right people in that segment. So, for example, children's toys are advertised during children's television programs using messages and images that children will understand. What are the disadvantages of salon niche marketing then? Well, there may well be lower profits. Because of the small scale of the market that we're looking at, so the fact that we're in a niche market, it does limit the chances of making a high profit. Even if a high price can be charged, the lack of customers will reduce the total profit made. Also, unit costs tend to be relatively high compared to larger competitors, again reducing the potential for high profit margins. Remember, a unit cost is how much it costs to make or to produce one unit of that good. If a niche is large enough for a small business to make a reasonable profit, then the problem is that it might attract competition from another bigger business. If a number of businesses are sharing relatively few customers, then it might be very difficult to survive, particularly if these firms compete for customers as well. There might be changes in demand. So small businesses in our niche markets can be very vulnerable to changes in demand. Because niche products are specialised, the firms operating them are not able to spread risks. So it's not like you can say, in the example of that orienteering magazine, we can't have two orienteering magazines in case one doesn't sell. There aren't enough people. So if that one magazine doesn't sell, then no magazines will sell. For this reason, you're not able to, you're not able to spread your risk. So a decline in interest among customers may threaten the firm's very existence, as it's got no other products to fall back on. Larger mass market firms are able to avoid this risk by producing a wide range of goods and services. And finally, market entry. An increase in interest among consumers may have been enough to attract larger firms in the market. So Holland and Barrett, who sell all things like vitamins, identified health food as a niche market many years ago, but the company has not grown quickly. This is because as the demand for health food has increased, large supermarkets like Tesco have also decided to sell health foods. So in rapidly changing times, it is likely that niche markets will make high profits only in the short term, unless they can react to the needs of customers. So then, the opposite of niche marketing, we've got mass marketing. So remember, if that's the whole market, a niche might go for a little bit, and mass marketing might go for most of it. So a niche market just looks at a little bit. The mass market might only avoid a little bit. So So examples of mass marketed goods are things like petrol and baked beans. So within a mass market, there's only a limited scope for targeting, so we can't target specific customers this time. So for instance, there's little scope to modify petrol to appeal to a niche market. So we can't have pink petrol for people who like pink things, for instance. We just have petrol. There are more variations to baked beans, so things like different shapes, or not shapes of baked beans, but different flavours of sauces aimed at children, but mostly baked beans are baked beans and they're sold to a mass market. So what advantages are there of this? Well, we can have large scale production this time. So with mass marketing, production on a large scale is possible, which will help to lower costs per unit through factors such as bulk buying. So remember, the more of something we buy, generally the cheaper we can get it. This should improve profit margins, particularly as many businesses will not be large enough to compete in the mass market, so you might have less competitors. We might have high revenues because of the sheer volumes of customers. It enables companies to earn huge revenues. So the chemical industry in the UK is worth probably 40 or 50 billion pounds a year, even though there are 500 or so different chemical companies, because they all make in excess of £5 million, £6 million a year. So purely because the amount of people who need to buy chemicals, each of those 500 firms can still make profit. Barriers to entry. So mass marketing allows businesses to use the most expensive and usually the most effective marketing. Not only does this help eliminate smaller rivals, but it can also act as a barrier to entry for new firms. So for instance, soap powder or washing liquid has been dominated by two large companies with two huge budgets. So you've got Procter & Gamble, for instance. They sell the vast majority of all the household goods that you have. So because they've got such huge marketing budgets, it's limited the opportunities for new firms to break into the market, as they cannot afford the advertising budgets. So as soon as you've become big in a mass market, it's difficult for your competitors to try and also get in that market. Then we've got research and development. So industries such as pharmaceuticals, where we make prescription drugs, it is necessary to appeal to a large, profitable mass market in order to be able to fund the research and development costs needed to introduce new products. So, for instance, it might cost £400 or £500 million to develop a new painkiller. So that would put off competitors, but it means that we've got to have a mass market to sell that to. But it does give an incentive for businesses who have a mass market to develop these new products, because they know that they're going to get them paid for. And finally, brand awareness. Mass marketing increases brand awareness. Not only does this assist the sales of a branded product, but can also help break down customer resistance to new products. So for instance, Cadbury or Coca-Cola can use high levels of brand awareness to encourage customers who are often reluctant to try new products if they don't recognise the name. And the opposite. Let's look at the disadvantages this time, still on mass marketing. High fixed capital costs are incurred, such as the purchase of large factories or large or expensive machinery, and other assets such as lorries or delivery equipment. This may prevent many businesses from ever operating in the mass market. There could be changes in demand in mass markets, which means that a fall in demand, for instance, will lead to unused spare capacity, which we know from what you've looked at increases unit costs. So as the pace of change accelerates, this is becoming a much greater problem, because customers want the latest products. They want things to change as much as possible. So small niche market firms will be less affected, as they don't have to spend as much on their factories. So smaller firms can react more easily to changes in demand. Think of it like an elephant and a mouse. An elephant is strong and powerful, and if they're just doing one thing, going in one direction, you'd back them in a fight against a mouse. But if the mouse was able to change direction quickly, they could run rings around an elephant. So a small niche business is like a mouse, a large mass market business is like an elephant. Next, let's look at the effects of standardization. it can be difficult to appeal directly to individual customers because mass market products must be designed to suit all customers. That's the point of them. As a result, prices tend to be lower, therefore reducing the opportunities for high profits. The competition. Mass market organisations are much more vulnerable to low cost competition from abroad, as the UK cannot match wage levels and other costs in these countries. So think of the clothes that Primark buy. It buys them from abroad because they are cheaper, because wages are lower in places like Indonesia. And adding value. So one of the first topics we looked at, in mass markets there is less scope for adding value, because as customer incomes increase, there is also a growing tendency for them to want high price unique products. That trend, so people having more money and wanting things that are unique, is helping niche market firms, but also making it harder for businesses that want to concentrate on the mass market. Again, think about the elephant and the mouse. The mouse can react very quickly to what people need. The elephant can only do that one thing, going in one straight direction. So through careful market research, businesses in a mass market can reduce these risks, but there is always the danger that their products or the demand for their products will fall. Consequently, such firms must regularly examine their products in order to ensure that their goods continue to suit the market. So it all comes back to, again, market research. That's how we link back to Buss1 there. And finally, something else we said we need to look at, product differentiation. In order to compete in a mass market, a business must make sure that its product is different from a competitor's products. If consumers value this difference, then there will be a benefit in two ways. Basically, you'll sell more, and it also means that not only can you sell more, but you might be able to charge more for what you do sell, purely because your product is different. In a mass market, product differentiation is usually employed by things in the marketing mix. You'll have come across that briefly before, and it's the 4 Ps. So things to do changing the product, the price, the place where it's sold, and how the product is promoted. So it might be that we have good design or good branding and packaging to make the product more attractive. It might be that we have a clever promotional or advertising campaign to boost images. So for instance, the trainers that we buy from Nike, are they necessarily better in quality than the trainers you might buy from, Aldi or Tesco? Or have they just got a better brand image? Have they got a better brand name? Or it might be that we have different distribution methods. So say for instance, Avon, which is a cosmetic company, so selling makeup, differentiates itself by selling direct to the customer. So you might have a representative, an agent who shows you exactly what these things do. Amazon differentiates itself by only selling through the internet with no traditional shops. So they have differentiated themselves in that way. So make sure you have a watch of this video. The quiz is there sat in the description. This time I've made it a little bit more challenging. The questions aren't in the correct order, so you are going to have to watch this and relate back to the questions and go back from one question to another, perhaps go to different parts of the video.